Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to the Mylio Photos coffee break. My name is Angela Andrew, and I'm so glad you're able to join us today. We're going to be talking about traveling with Mylio Photos. This is one of my favorite topics. Not just Mylio, of course, I enjoy that, but travel. Travel is one of my favorite things to do. And what I'm going to show you today is my workflow for whether I'm traveling with just my phone, when I'm traveling with my tablet and my phone, maybe my camera, my bigger camera, and sometimes I bring along my laptop. So we'll talk through a few of those scenarios and we'll go over the concept of having a travel backup, ways to protect your images while you are on the road. Before we do that today, I do want to let you know that we have live Q&A events for you every Tuesday and Thursday. Those are at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And I hope you guys can join me for those. They're a lot of fun. They're very informal. And whether you are just starting out with Mylio or you are a seasoned user, everybody is welcome. And hopefully you'll get some interesting information out of it. We hold these coffee breaks every Friday, and I can see that I did not update my slide. Next week's topic is going to be on spring cleaning your Mylio library. So some of those cleanup tasks that you might have been putting off, I'll show you where to find some of these cleanup tools that I use and how you can keep everything fresh and going for the next season. So let's go ahead and dive into Mylio, and I'm going to go ahead and just make a little switch here on my screen, pull up the presentation. Mastering Mylio Photos for travel. This is one of my favorite topics. I love to travel, especially with my camera in hand. And one of the challenges that comes up often for people who like to take pictures while they travel is making sure those pictures are accessible and backed up and safe during those travels. I'm going to walk through a few different scenarios with you today and hopefully give you some ideas of how you can better protect your images while you're on the road. So let's go ahead and jump in here. What we're going to talk about today is embracing the minimalist mindset. So we're going to talk through some of the different gear options when you travel. We'll talk about backup techniques, so things you can do to keep things safe. And we're going to go through a couple of different specific workflows. So I'm going to specifically talk about when I travel with my camera and my laptop and my camera and my iPad, because I don't always want to carry the big old laptop with me. And we will go over a little bit on traveling with just your phone, but I think most people, especially if you're really into photography, you're probably going to take at least a tablet with you if you want to be reviewing your images and have a little bit more control over those backups. So as you're getting into considering what to bring with you on your trip, these are the three things that I really think about that guide what I'm going to travel with. So what is the goal of the trip? Is photography my goal? Am I going on this trip to take pictures, to see places and explore specifically with my camera? Am I going on this trip to relax and just spend time with my family or my friends? Or am I going for work or some other specific purpose? That's going to really guide what exactly I take with me. Who am I traveling with? Am I traveling on my own? Am I traveling with other photographers? Or with, say, maybe my husband and my dad, who are not necessarily so much into photography. My husband's getting more into it, which is cool. But my dad, he is just a very supportive observer. So when you're traveling with people who aren't photographers, that also guides which gear you bring with you and how heavy you travel. If you're traveling with other photographers, you're more likely to bring along the laptop and some bigger gear. Finally, considering the mode of transportation, are you road tripping it in the car, getting on a plane, backpacking? All of these things play in to whether I'm going to travel with my big camera, my iPhone just for pictures. I have a little pocket camera, I could bring that. So what am I going to capture my pictures with? If I bring the big camera, that typically involves bringing more lenses and other equipment. That's typically going to be for a photography specific trip when I'm traveling with other photographers, and photography is really the goal. I also will bring more when I am traveling by car than I will on the plane, because you're really a little bit more limited when you have to choose what's going to be in your carry-on versus what's going to be in checked baggage. If you're backpacking, you absolutely want to travel light. And unless it's a specific photography backpacking trip, then that's going to, change what you choose. So mode of transportation plays in a huge role, the goal of the trip, and who I'm traveling with. So think about that as you decide what to bring with you. I like to bring as much versatile gear as possible. So that's going to be asking me if I'm going to bring just my laptop, my tablet, or just go really, really light with just my smartphone. Typically, I'm going to bring at least my tablet. Sometimes I bring my laptop. It's really going to depend on how much weight I want to carry and how long I'm going to be gone, what I need to be doing. Also want to think about bringing portable storage. That's going to be extra memory cards for your big camera, of course, but if you're wanting to have some place to back up your pictures, you probably also want to consider an SSD drive. And we'll talk more about that later, but those are some of the things you're going to want to consider as you're choosing what to pack. So let's get into some of the techniques for backing up all of those captures as you're going out there and making your memories. So the one thing I want to always come back to is I'm a big fan of the 3-2-1 backup, which means you have 3 copies of your media on at least 2 different types of storage, with one of them offsite. That offsite one becomes a little bit more challenging when you're traveling because that typically relies on cloud storage and is very reliant on having a fast and reliable internet connection. Sometimes offsite backups are not possible when you're on the road. So that's something to keep in mind, and also why I really encourage people to travel with an SSD. Mylio Photos makes keeping everything in sync very easy. And if you connect your devices that you have with you, let's say you have your camera, your laptop, and an SSD, you can have your stuff in at least 3 different places. So you can have things on the memory card for your camera. You can have a copy saved on your laptop or your iPad. And if you bring that SSD drive as a travel backup, you can have them there. You can even take that a step farther when you are actually moving about and traveling from place to place, keeping those 3 things in 3 separate bags. And that's going to make it so that if somebody grabs your bag off your shoulder, hopefully you still have another copy of your images in one of those other devices in another bag. So not having everything all in one place where it can all be lost all at once is the heart of making sure things are safe when you're traveling. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about my workflow for Wanderlust. Like I said, I love to travel. All the pictures you're actually seeing in this particular presentation, these are pictures from my travels. This is, if you've never been there, this is Cannon Beach in Oregon, and some of the other really cool places I've had the benefit of traveling. So the first thing you want to do before you go is designate a travel backup. Typically, this is going to be a small SSD drive that you can connect to your laptop, iPad, or if you have a newer iPhone, like an iPhone 15 or 16, you can connect it there as well. You want to add the device to Mylio Photos, select the travel backup sync policy, and that will tell Mylio to automatically back up everything from the last 3 months to that little drive. And that means when you're traveling, you plug that drive in after you've imported your pictures, and Mylio will automatically back up those full quality media to that travel backup drive. So before we get any further, what I'd like to do is work with you guys, and we're going to do a travel backup right now. So I'm going to switch back to my camera. Hopefully the lag isn't terrible. I have a little tiny SSD drive here. Right now this is blank, and I want to designate this as a travel backup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and plug this into my computer, and I'm going to switch back over here to the screen, actually that one, sorry about that. And we're going to go into Mylio. So I'm going to switch over here to Mylio, and I'm going to designate this as a travel backup drive. So this is a brand new drive. I just connected it to my computer, and I'm going to go over here to devices. I'm going to go up here to the top of my list and choose add. We're going to choose external drive, and I'm going to go ahead and give it access to access my drives. You can see that one just popped up, and I'm going to say continue. And at this point, it sees that my library is too big to fit on this, so it's not going to recommend it as a vault. What I want to do here, instead of choosing highest rated, is I want to go into custom setup. And this is where you can select travel backup and choose looks good. That applies the travel backup sync policy to this drive, meaning it will automatically put everything from the past 3 months onto this drive. So if we go here into device sync policies and take a look at this column, keep full-size copies of all media from the last 3 months. So anything that I capture from today and back for the last 90 days will be saved and backed up to this drive. Now, I've taken a lot of pictures in the last couple of months, so it does have a lot that it's trying to sync right now, but that's going to give us an idea of how this works, and that's how easy it is to set up the travel backup drive. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you how to connect that to an iPad and how you can use that in that particular scenario. So let me go ahead and jump back over to the presentation, and we're going to move through a few more slides here. So the next thing you're going to do after you designate your travel backup, head on your trip and start taking those pictures. That's when you're going to need to consider backing them up. So what we're going to do here with this is there's a few things that you want to know before you try to back things up. If you are shooting on a mobile app, the mobile app must be on and running in the foreground to import and sync. That means if you're taking pictures on your iPhone or your Android phone, in order for those images to sync to Mylio, you're going to have to switch to the Mylio app and leave that running in the foreground. If you have another device with you, like a tablet or a laptop, turn on Mylio on those devices as well and let Mylio sync. That will give it a chance to pull in those pictures from your mobile phone. A local Wi-Fi connection is required for device sync. So if you're not connecting something with a physical cord, it does need a local Wi-Fi connection. So you don't necessarily have to have fast internet, but you do need to have a local Wi-Fi connection for your devices to talk directly to each other, such as your phone to your laptop. And then finally, an internet connection is required if you want to sync things to an off-site location. For instance, if you have a computer at home with a vault connected, or you're using something like Mylio Drive Plus or another cloud service, the internet connection is required for the off-site sync. And that's the one big variable when you're traveling is we don't know necessarily whether, we typically, if we're staying in a hotel, we're going to have some level of Wi-Fi, which is great if you want to have your devices talking to each other. But that internet connection required for off-site sync, a lot of times those connections are going to be slow and they're not necessarily going to be reliable. So you definitely want to have secondary backups in mind while you're on the road because off-site isn't necessarily going to be reliable. So let's go ahead and jump into my laptop workflow. This is how I travel when I'm bringing my camera, whether it's my big camera, my little pocket camera, and I am lugging along the big old laptop. This is my preferred workflow if I have the space. So this is typically if I'm road tripping or maybe I'm on a business trip or I'm going to be gone for a longer period of time. I do like to have my laptop with me because it gives me the most flexibility, but it is the most gear to carry. So what I'm going to do when I'm traveling is I'm going to connect the travel backup drive to my laptop. That's going to be a little USB-C SSD, like the one I just showed you. And I'm going to use Mylio Photos to import my media. Now the cool thing about this is when I look at my folders inside of Mylio, those are the same folders that are on my vault and on all of my backups, and Mylio keeps all of that in sync. So even if it can't access my main vaults while I'm on the road, it can still put them into the appropriate folders and sync them so they're in the right place later on. And this helps me create a sort of automatic backup here. So I have my original on the memory card. My working copy then gets transferred to the laptop if the hard drive space allows. And I have that travel backup drive. Now, if bandwidth allows, if I've got a great internet connection, which sometimes you do, especially if I'm staying in like an Airbnb, typically those seem to have a little bit better internet, I can then sync things to Mylio Drive Plus and to my Synology NAS that I have back home if internet is fast enough and reliable enough. Like I said, this is a big variable, but at least if I have these 3 copies, my original and the memory card, I don't format my memory cards until I get home and things are backed up to my vaults. I try to have enough room on my laptop to at least have a copy on the laptop, and then I have the backup drive. So there's at least 3 copies of my media. If I'm shooting on my phone, what I do is make sure that my phone is on with Mylio running, maybe in the evening when I get back to wherever it is I'm staying. I turn on my laptop, I plug in that travel backup drive, I turn on my phone with Mylio running, and I let everything sync over the local network. And that allows Mylio to pull those pictures off my camera roll and put them onto that travel backup drive. You do need to let Mylio have some time to run, especially if you've been taking a lot of pictures. And in that case, you might want to make sure your phone is plugged into power. Just set it down when you're not using it. Maybe you get back from dinner and just let it run overnight. So that's what I recommend when you're shooting with your phone. So again, you're going to have your original still on your camera roll. We're not going to clean that out until later. You'll have your working copy on the laptop, back up to the travel backup drive. And again, if your bandwidth allows, perhaps get that offsite backup. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into a demo workflow here. I'm going to switch back over to Mylio. And right now on my laptop, what I'm going to do is I have this little travel backup installed here. Here's the Extreme SSD that I just added. And I'm going to import a handful of pictures. So I went out. These are not going to be great pictures. I don't even know if they're in focus. Honestly, I just took a few pictures of flowers outside my front door. So I have something to import. But I'm going to go ahead and take my little memory card here and plug it into the computer. And what that's going to do is it's going to pop up on the screen and show me the ability to import here. So I'm going to go ahead. There it is. My import just popped up. I have everything already set where I want it to go. I don't want it to bring in any suspected duplicates. I'm going to go here under Show Advanced Settings. I have a custom file name set up. And if I wanted to, I could add keywords. I'm going to go ahead and just hit Copy Now. And what's going to happen is Mylio is going to import those into my main hierarchy. If I go back here to my folders and go into my main photos here, we're going to go down here to 2025. And we'll see here in a moment, those pictures are starting to come in right here. And they're getting put into my normal hierarchy, and they will be backed up to that travel backup drive. So that's really how simple that is. It doesn't have to have my vaults all connected. They happen to be connected right now because I'm at my desk, but we just want to let that run and let those pictures be added to the library. So pretty straightforward there. Let's go ahead and talk about the iPad workflow. So this is a little bit different if you're traveling with just a camera and an iPad, or a mobile phone and an iPad, and you want to get things into Mylio. So this is going to be a slightly different workflow. I do have a USB-C hub. Let me show it to you here really quick. And so this is the little USB-C hub that I have. It's USB-C connector, and it's got 4 ports there for more USB-C. I will say this thing's a little bit finicky. Sometimes my iPad takes a long time to recognize things on this. So I'm going to just put this aside, not use it right now. But the reason I have something like this is I can plug in power into one, I can plug in a card reader, and I can plug in the travel backup all at once. Typically you have to have one of the newer iPads or iPad Pros in order for it to support something like this. And like I said, it doesn't work terribly reliably all the time, but it can be helpful. So I do recommend getting something like that. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to switch back to my screen, and I'm going to grab my iPad, and we're going to take a look at that. So let me go ahead and go one more slide forward here. So using the iPhone, importing things into your iPad is going to be very similar, and we're going to go ahead and just jump right into the iPad workflow. Let me see if I can share my screen. Give me just a second here. And there we go. Let's make this a bit bigger. Hopefully you guys can see this all right. And right now you're looking at the folders view on my iPad, basically, and you're seeing my folders view on my laptop right behind it. Hopefully that's not too confusing. So again, what I want to do when I'm traveling, I want to take a memory card from a camera, and I have, let's see here, I'm going to switch back to my camera here. I've got my little pocket camera, this little Sony RX 100 Mark 7, I believe. Great little pocket camera. So when I don't want to take the big camera, this little guy is typically what I take. I'm going to go ahead and pop my memory card out of here. And we're going to plug this in to my iPad. I've got a USB-C card reader here for my iPad, and that's what I'm going to go ahead and connect. So I'm going to switch back over here to the screen, and we're going to do that. So give me a second here. Hopefully this connects and pops up on the screen just like it did on my laptop. It should pop up exactly like that. It recognized that I have a memory card connected, and it's going to be the exact same process as importing on a laptop when you're importing into your tablet, or if you have a USB-C capable iPhone, you can even do this on an iPhone. So again, I'm going to go down here, show advanced settings, all the same settings, say copy now, and I'm going to go ahead and go back here into my photos. We're going to go to 2024, or 2025 rather, and you can see there's the pictures that just imported right here from the other import. We'll see another folder appear. Actually, it's probably going to put them right into that same folder because it's the same date. And I'm going to be able to just go in there and see all of the pictures. So all of the pink ones are the ones that I just imported off of this card. And the white ones are the ones I imported off of the previous card. So everything still goes into the same folder regardless of if I do this on my iPad or I do this on my laptop. So the next thing I want to do, now that these are imported, I'm going to actually unplug the card reader here. So we're going to take that out. Let me go ahead and switch here to the video so you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take that out, and I'm going to go over to Mylio. I'm going to eject the SSD drive from my laptop. I'm going to plug that into my iPad and show you how to connect the travel backup to your iPad. So give me just a second here. I'm going to go back over here to Mylio, and let me go back here to my screen. I go here to the devices, grab that Extreme SSD, and I'm going to disconnect it here. Tell Mylio to stop syncing to that. And that enables me to be able to eject this from my file system. I'm going to go back to Finder now and go here to my Extreme SSD, and I can now eject this. And now I can safely unplug that from my laptop. Now let's jump back over to my iPad rather, and I'm going to take that same SSD drive and plug it into my iPad. So I'm going to switch here real quick on my iPad to the Files app. And this is how you're going to be able to tell if something is connected properly when you have external storage on an iPad. You can see over here on the left, the Extreme SSD popped up as a device. That means Mylio is going to be able to recognize it. So I'm going to now switch back to Mylio, and I can now go to my dashboard over here on the left. Get that out of the way real quick. So dashboard, and I'm going to go here to add a device. Now I've already added this device in the traditional sense, so Mylio has already put a folder on there. It knows that it exists, but what I want to do is you have to take a couple of extra steps when you're connecting on an iPad, because the way that the file system works on an iPad is a little different than a computer. So we're just going to go down here. We're going to choose external drive and continue. And then you can see it pops up with the files. I'm going to go down here and choose Extreme SSD and open. Go up here to the upper right and say open. And it's now going to attach to my iPad. We'll see it pop up here and come online here in just a second. It just came up online right here, and it's now connected and syncing here on the right. So that's how easy it is to do. And now that I've imported those pictures from my camera memory card and now connected the SSD drive, Mylio is now backing up those files to that SSD. So it's really quite painless, very easy, and it makes traveling so fun and easy. Let me find a place here on my desk to put my iPad, and I'll get that out of the way. 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and stop mirroring on that. And we're going to jump back into Mylio on the laptop. So let's jump back into the slide deck, and that's the iPad workflow demo. And I think that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to share with you today. I wanted to give you an idea of what's possible and how really simple it is to travel with Mylio. It's really changed how I work with my pictures when I'm on the road, and I think it really could be beneficial for you too if you've never done it before. I do want to remind you to try to embrace minimalism and invest in multitasking gear. Think about who you're traveling with, the goal of your trip, and your mode of transportation. That's going to kind of guide what you bring with you. Be flexible. When you're out there shooting and traveling, we didn't really touch on this too much in the presentation, but if you're out there on a trip, you don't really have any control over the factors, the other tourists that are there, the weather, things like that. Embrace whatever comes at you and get the shot, make the memory. And then finally, automate your backup and make sure those pictures are safe, because you don't want to lose the tangible reminders of those memories that you're making. So with that, I do want to go ahead and open up the floor for questions. I've been seeing a lot of different questions come in here. So let's go ahead and jump into those. All right. And thank you, Lori, for being here and for sharing links. We always appreciate that. All right. So we have from Stafford, iPad and camera, or iPad and phone is perfect for me. Perfect. It is a great workflow, isn't it, Stafford? Let's see here.
Yes.
He also asked, can I turn on my offsite sync to minimize data used and still sync to other local devices with me? I plan to travel with iPad, iPhone, small camera, travel backup SSD. I have offsite vault and vault at home. Also have laptop at home if not with me. Let's see here. So I wouldn't turn off sync, but let's think the best way to do this. If you want, So if you were worried about data, if you're using cellular data, there is a setting on your phone. So if on your phone or your iPad, if it's a cellular connected iPad, you can turn off sync by cellular, and that'll still let you sync over Wi-Fi if it's available. But I wouldn't turn off sync entirely because that's a global setting. It turns it off for everything. It's either an all or nothing. Does that make sense? Sorry, Stafford, are you still there?
Yeah, it does. My next question was really goes more into that. My motorhome has a cellular router, so my devices can hook to it with Wi-Fi, but it's going to hook to the internet unless I guess I could shut that off while it's syncing. But I think the easiest way is just to do it like you showed, where I may just have to turn my home stuff off while I travel and sync locally within my motorhome. Uh, the
Yeah,
the other
that might be the better option.
yeah, the other questions I just put in there was when you copied the pics to the uh, to on your iPad, you
Mhm.
moved it to your photos location, and by doing it the way you did it, did those photos not hit your camera roll? Because I find the camera roll just gets really mucked up if you've got a bunch of them. If you could go straight into Mylio on that SSD from, like, say, a camera without having it hit your camera roll, it just keeps your space down on your iPad or on your iPhone.
Exactly. That's exactly what I did. So this does not, when you're bringing in stuff from a memory card on a camera, whether you're on your iPad or you're on your laptop, that doesn't touch the camera roll. So unless you open up Apple Photos and tell it to import there first, this completely avoids it. So you're basically making a connection directly from the Files app inside the iPad directly to Mylio.
That's awesome. And then if I want to edit one of them, I'll have to just go get it and pull it back out of uh, the SSD to do my editing, right?
Well, so I mean, if you're on your iPad and you want to edit the full res version, you can do that with the SSD connected.
Okay.
So if it's connected and that file's there, you can certainly do that. Or when you get home, you can plug that SSD into your computer. That'll sync everything up with your vaults. And then again, you have everything where you normally do.
Try and do as much of it on the road, but just missing the camera roll is the greatest thing that I got out of this that you showed. Thanks.
Awesome. You're welcome. All right. Carol says, does phone hotspot work as Wi Fi? Yes, it does. I do that all the time. Just be aware that when you set up your phone as a hotspot, you are using cellular data. And that, depending on what your data plan is, can put a pretty big tax on it. I have unlimited data, but my plan, even though it's quote unquote unlimited, it does throttle after a certain point. So if we use a ton of it and it's on a shared plan with my husband and my parents, if we use up all of our data, then it goes to a really, really slow connection. So just keep that in mind as you're doing that. All right, Jeannie, I have an older iPad with a lightning connector. Can a person use a USB-C converter to lightning? Jeannie, you can try, and it's not officially supported. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. I know I've used the lightning connector to import things off of a memory card, but I don't think it would support the USB-C drive. And the reason for that is the lightning connector doesn't put off very much power, and USB-C transfers more power, which means it can power the drive. So that's something to keep in mind. I would say it's worth giving a try, but I can't guarantee that that's going to work. All right. Patty and Peter, somehow I lost my list of devices on my info screen. So probably what you're going to look at there is making sure that you are in the everything space and that you're not in a workflow. So let me show you where that's at real quick. Go here into Mylio. And let's say we're over here into all photos. And I'm going to go ahead and jump to the top of the list here. You can see those are the pictures we just brought in. If you're not seeing all of your devices over here in the info, yes, in the sync panel, I think that's what you're asking. So you're going to go over here to info, you're going to open up sync, and then you should be able to see those. You may need to expand the devices section here. I think that's what you're saying. The other thing, if you're not able to get to this area, is make sure that you are in the everything space and that you're in the all tools workflow, because that can hide specific tools. Basically, it's supposed to help you focus on specific tasks. So you hide certain things when we're working on specific things. But sometimes if you forget to transfer it back out of that view, you can be like, oh, where'd my stuff go? So just make sure you're in all tools and the everything space. All right. Carol says, can you use a thumb drive? Carol, you can connect a thumb drive, but the thing with a thumb drive is Mylio looks at thumb drives like it does with temporary storage like a memory card. So it's not going to let you use it as a storage location. You can import from it, but you can't use it as a travel backup. So that's something to keep in mind. Typically thumb drives are not meant for long-term storage. All right, and I think that's all the questions there. We've got a couple of hands up. Harold, you're up first.
Yeah, good morning. I have on my uh, desktop an external RAID where I have
Mm-hmm.
all my photos, and I have a major folder that's photos with subfolders that are organized by date,
Mm-hmm.
and those are all linked files to the vault. And then since this external RAID is also a vault, it has a Mylio numbered file
Mm-hmm.
with mirrors of the same folders that are in the in the photos file. And for the files that are linked, the only thing you see in the Mylio numbered file are the XMPs, which is fine because I
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to access the photos off of the main photos file. I've tried importing two different ways. I've either imported to the Mylio inbox, and
Mm-hmm.
then on Mylio, moving them to what I consider the main folders in the subfolders in the photos main folder.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've also tried importing directly into those folders. And either way, the actual original photos are not in the linked folders, they're in the Mylio numbered file.
So
Does
that's
that
going to
make
have to do with,
sense?
I think so. I think that has to do with your sync policy and how you have things set up as far as your vault's always going to have everything. And the folder that's linked, depending on how you have it set up, if the sync policy is to save space or catalog only, if needed, it will offload that to save space and keep those only on your vaults.
No, I have it the sync is have originals.
Interesting. Huh. And
So what I
okay.
wind up doing is copying them. I mean, I just copy them into, not using Mylio, copying them into the folder I want them, and then
Mhm.
Mylio sees them.
Interesting. So yeah, I mean, you can certainly import directly into the inbox. I have things set up here. So let me go back and just do add media accessible from this device. Let me grab that memory card again and choose a copy. So here under my advanced settings, so you can go ahead, you can choose a specific folder for things to go to.
Right.
I
That's what
actually
I've
have a
done.
little I have a little cheat though. So this just says my top level photos folder. If that's all you select, it's just going to put that into that top level folder. So under file naming, you can actually set up a hierarchy. So
I
I have
did
it
that.
set up. Yeah, okay, perfect. And it's still not going to the right place when you do that.
Right. It,
I would
it's
reach
it's
out.
it's going to the numbered. I mean,
So it ends up in
it's
the right
on the
place on the vault, but not in your linked folder.
right.
Interesting. Probably because that's not where they ended up. So anything that you're importing new, Mylio thinks is just needing to go to the vault and it's saving this space. If you were to drag and drop them from your memory card into the linked folder and then Mylio found them there, then it wouldn't take them. I think that's probably what's happening. Is because when you're
Well,
doing,
if yeah, if from the memory, actually, what with the memory card, what I've been doing is if I'm on the laptop, I've been trying to drag them into what I consider the linked folder. But
Mhm.
obviously, that folder is not on the laptop; it's in Mylio, and that may be the issue. I don't put the memory card in my uh, main computer because I'm on the road. What I
Right.
have, but and that's why I tried just putting it to the Mylio inbox because when they're in the Mylio inbox, the original files are on the desktop in the inbox.
Right.
And then I go move and I want to move them to the linked folder and they wind up in the vault file, not in the original file.
I think it's just because of where they're originating. That's
Got it.
gotta be what it is.
Okay.
I,
Then
I would
I
think.
just need to copy them. Okay. Can do that.
Yeah. Or just you can instead what I would do is if you want to always have those linked folders hold all originals, go to your
Yeah.
folders view. Let me go ahead and cancel
Hmm.
out of this here. And let me go here to top level. And on your linked folder here, so this is a linked folder that I have linked from my Mac.
Right.
Go here to the tap to sync and say store original files locally.
Got
And
it.
then that should keep them there all the time.
Okay. Yeah. Because what I have is use device sync policy. That'll do it.
Yep.
Good.
Yep, that'll do it.
Perfect. Thank you. I
You're
always learn
welcome.
something from you.
I'm so glad to hear that. All right, looks like Mike is up next. You're welcome to unmute, Mike.
Sorry, there we go.
There you are.
Thank you. Uh, Everything you described here, I've done multiple times, works great. Been on many trips and tried everything you mentioned here, but that's the question, multiple trips. Obviously, you don't want to keep buying 1 and 2 terabyte SSDs every time you go on a trip. So is there any best practices for just disconnecting and reformatting the SSD for your next trip? Once it
So
syncs to all your vaults, are you good to go to just reformat it?
you don't need to do that. Just keep it when you're not traveling. Keep it connected to your computer, and Mylio will updates where it's only ever keeping the last 90 days. And when you go on a trip, disconnect it from your main machine and just take it with you, and it'll do what it's supposed to do.
Does it delete all the ones that are older than 90 days?
Yep. Well, it'll so those files will be held in cache, and if the drive fills up and needs more space, it will clear out that space for you. If
Oh,
you wanted to, you can also go in and manually clear the cache. So if I go over here to my other travel backup drive, so I have one that this is my active one that I use when I travel. I can always go in here and tell it to clear the cache, and that's going to clear up any unused files. So this drive has a lot of space on it, and I have a lot of things stored on it that I probably don't need. So I could clear out all of those files, and that would free up the space.
okay, perfect. I was disconnecting it, reformatting it the whole 9 yards because I didn't realize it would clear those older files. So that's great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Make
Appreciate
it,
it.
yeah, that should make your life a little easier.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Edward, you're up next.
I thought I had a simple way of doing this when I travel. I travel with my iPhone and my iPad.
Okay.
I let the photos that I take on my phone go to the camera roll, and
Mm-hmm.
that gets synced to my iPad. I was using the iPad as a travel backup.
Okay.
And do I need more than that?
I would still do if you have the capacity to add in a travel backup SSD. I think it's a really good investment. You can then have things backed up into another device, and then tuck that into another pocket in a different suitcase or a different bag. And then that way, if the bag where your iPhone and your iPad are, something happens, you still have that travel backup. So I think it's a worthwhile investment. It's probably not essential, but I would highly recommend it.
But plug the cell phone into the SSD.
You could plug the cell phone in, or you could plug in your iPad. I would probably go with the iPad. The iPad's a little bit higher powered, probably work a little smoother, a little faster. But if your iPhone is an iPhone 15 or 16, you could plug the SSD directly into your iPhone.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, looks like we've got another question here from Stafford. Do you have a setup for using the Synology as an S3 device rather than direct connected to the computer? I know that's not a Mylio thing, but would keep me from running my computer. It's connected through a network connection. Yes, we do have instructions for setting up a Synology NAS. It is So sometimes Synology changes their different dialogues, but we do have a guide in the manual that will help. Let me go ahead and pull this up here. Let's see, pull up Safari. And that is exactly how I have my Synology set up. Now, I will say if you're going to connect it via S3, you can have it run locally on your home network, or you can open up a port on your NAS to have it accessible outside of your home network. I do recommend, if you are a technical person and you have an IT background, awesome, you are fully qualified to do that. Personally, it's not something that I felt comfortable doing myself. Luckily, my husband's in IT and he checked over all my settings to make sure I wasn't causing a vulnerability in our home network. So you do want to keep that in mind. It's not something to be taken lightly. And if you are not comfortable setting that up yourself, find somebody who you know who is an IT professional, or potentially hire someone to help you properly open that port so you're not causing a vulnerability in your home network. So you're going to go to manual.mylio.com, and I'm going to go down here to Backup and Protect. So setting up an S3 server on a Synology NAS. And I'm going to go ahead and pop those. Oops, looks like Lori beat me to it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So that's what I would do. But again, like I said, you can go down here towards the end, and the last steps, like I said, it's take that at your own risk. It's you're potentially opening up a vulnerability in your home network. So don't take that lightly.
Hey, good recommendation. I'm a 30-year IT veteran, so
Then you are qualified.
yeah, I'm qualified, and that's exactly the information I was looking for.
Perfect.
Thanks.
All right, you're very welcome. All right, Harold, selecting store locally, put the originals where they belong. Thank you. I am so glad that it was able to solve your issue. Are there any other questions for me today? Hope you guys enjoyed this session. Travel is one of my absolute favorite things, and I love being able to share that with you. Is it lagging again?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay. We'll fix it.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I want to just remind you guys, we have Q&A, live Q&A for you guys. Let's see here, go up to my events. There we go. That's the right slide. Tuesday and Thursday, that'll be at 11:30 a.m. Pacific, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And hope you guys can join me for that. Coffee break next week will be on spring cleaning your Mylio library. So we'll go over some cleanup techniques and things you can do just to make sure things stay organized and running well. So hopefully you'll join me for that. Thank you again for joining me today. It's been fun, and I hope you learned a little something. If you have follow-up questions, feel free to message me in the community.mylio.com. And Lori, thank you so much for being here, sharing links. It's always super helpful. And I'm sure everyone is very happy to see you too. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn you guys loose. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.